Let us attempt now to discuss aesthetics. Aesthetics in regard to the teaching not of the few, but of the many. So not of the artist, for the artist always has a message, but I am talking about the unconscious message of the aesthetics of modern man, Western man, man in America. Not fashion, for fashion may be categorized perhaps as decoration. One is, as a child, one determines what one likes, colors between the lines, and it varies. One likes one color, one texture, and so on. Decor, decoration. We're not talking of that. What we want to see and discuss, ponder, is the aesthetics of modern America and why it matters and what it indicates about the asleep, about the masses who are Untermensch, who are less than. If you go back and look at the ideal of the city, let's begin with that. The city in the Greeks, for the Greeks, perhaps for the Romans, the concept was that the city itself was a perfecting influence on man. In other words, the city itself, the architecture, being in the city, discourse, debate, that perfected the citizens, perfected the people into becoming their fullness, let's say. And it's very interesting that in America, if you contrast before the war, the World War II, which termed World War II, and the city after World War II, and the primary difference was that before World War II, cities still in America grew up more or less in the same fashion as cities always have, with some connection to the geography. So you could say it was a geopolitical creation, the city. Ports, usually around water or a trade route. If you look at World War II and that experience, where Eisenhower was very cognizant of the ability of the Autobahn to transport his enemy's troops and material quickly. And he saw that as perhaps of need to America. At the same time, you kind of had the rise of I won't call it, let's call it modernism in the post-World War II time, and the idea then combining sort of with this military view of concrete and Autobahn and interlacing the entire country with large superhighways, combined with an idea that sort of flowered around Chicago and New York with the architects who were sort of captured with the great organizational ability that had arisen in World War II. And when I say that, man had never organized himself into such efficiency as that war engendered. And Americans became very good at that. The architects of New York and Chicago wanted to harness that energy, the ability to take great engineering, a military sort of a capability of organization, and transform America, which was almost as a blank slate, into what? Well, sort of the era of streamlining. You can look back and see the rocketry, the beginnings of aerodynamics, and as as an aesthetic, it's very appealing, of course, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the underlying drive behind the architecture. What that drive was a desire to remake the city of man into an image, the movie, if you will, that the architects and the military were in, and make that a reality over the land. The idea of elimination of poverty, and you can go back and look at the architectural drawings, gleaming skyscrapers, long ribbons of concrete and interstate that would crisscross the country, cars. Cars were seen as amazing. It was like the space age. Cars looked like little rockets, and the air of fins and rocketry and that sort on the chassis, the style. And it was a very optimistic time. It was a time when it was believed that the landscape of America would progress into this sort of futurism of space-age materials and great organizational ability. Poverty would be eliminated, and man's city would spread out throughout the United States. And they proceeded to do just that. Even today, the interstate is still being built, and it's everywhere. If you look at a map, it just is like arteries and veins across the body of the land. When that occurred, there really was, at that point, still the memory of the land of America as it was in the past. The great forests that covered this country. Not the forests of today, for the old forests have been cut down. The great hardwood ancient forests have all been cut down for wood, for ships initially, and to build houses, mass housing, which was part of also the vision, to use the wood and to plant forests of pine trees, which would grow quickly and they could be harvested. In other words, man conquering nature and making it bend to his will that he may find and something of value, money, and he would use that to better nature and make it better for man. So that was sort of the transition from the concept of the perfection of man in the Greek time to a period after World War II where America decided it would remake the entirety of the United States into the city, the streamlined city of the future. And as we know, that is not what happened. That is not the movie that the architects and the engineers and the planners and the military had for the United States, the car makers, the oil companies. But that was the vision, and that's how the vision was sold, and that's what the collective of American intellectuals in that time believed. The trouble with it is it's really a vision of hubris, isn't it? Man's hubris. Man always believes he will build the eternal city in imitation of God. And there is a religious element in it, because in the Protestant belief, in the Christian belief, ultimately, what is the earth for? Well, the earth is to be used. For their religion teaches that nature is given to man, the animals are given to man for his use and his convenience. So this process cut down forests. It made a virtue of taking land from its raw state and converting it into what? What do we have now? Suburban wastelands of conformity and the sameness, McMansions, big box retailers. Everything looks the same. The best of men grow up as children in a time where all they can see is what is on store shelves and the fantasy that their technology promotes and what is on television, all geared to promote the ego. And so the dreams of the past in the 1940s, 50s, 60s, and early 60s of an ideal city, streamlined city, something akin to the Jetsons, was not what happened. I'll give you an example in New Orleans. In New Orleans, you can go back and find books and pictures of the beauty of New Orleans before the interstate. When the interstate arrived, the planners just by eminent domain took all the land, and especially the black community, raised it, pushed those people into new public housing, but not housing nearby, out. And then the interstate came directly into the city. So the community of the black community was just destroyed. What had grown up organically was by decree and engineering changed into something else. Poverty was eliminated, but of course it was created. Poverty was created because those people were put into public housing where they didn't want to be. Can you imagine? And the pictures of the beauty of the architecture of New Orleans before the interstate, the human scale, organic life, communities, vibrant communities. Because man at core will get along with man. But his architecture now dictated by the interstate where he would go and how he would work. It was a great boon to industry. Of course, it created the automobile industry and in turn created the oil industry. When I say created, it created the demand because now that you lived in the suburbs and everything revolved around the great ribbons of interstate and concrete and engineering, well, man was truly the Christian man. For who is the Christian man? Is he not a soul who resides in a body? Well, now the car is an extension of the body. Cars themselves look like with faces and appear to be extensions of man. Man rides in a car just as his soul rides in his body. Yes? You have to see it as an extension of man's collective ability to control nature. For again, what does man want to do? He wants to create everything to be as a theme park so that his life will be an entertainment. He will work and then die and embalm his body, for he does not believe his body is anything but what he must conquer. And his faith tells him that he will return to a heaven from whence he came. For man, modern man, has fulfilled the vision, the religious vision, that he is only a soul, only an ego, that his self is the primary, and he wants to save himself. It is not enough merely to wait until death. It is better, and in fact the religion now teaches, prosperity gospel, money, that the Protestant vision of Christianity is to build and take raw land and make it something of value. Now that sounds good, but what that means is cutting down everything, taking land where animals live and paving it. You know, it reminds you of Janis Joplin and Pave Paradise, put up a parking lot. And she was a visionary, right? Does anyone believe, anyone that can travel in America now, does anyone look at our cities and believe that that vision in any way was fulfilled? Can anyone with any sense of being human Look at the city and suburbia, which is the extension of the city, the effort to make all of America one diseased city. For isn't man a disease? Isn't what he is what a cancer, but an uncontrolled growth? And isn't that what man is now? In his sleep. In his sleep. And has not he wrought a landscape, a wasteland? What is the aesthetic then? What is the modern American's aesthetic? His car? His clothes? No, not his clothes, because then we go into fashion. But the essence of car, an automobile, to carry himself through the city. Contrast that again with the Greeks, that the idea of the city was to walk and discourse and be with other human beings, and that perfected him. Man now in the suburbs, he is not connected to the next man, he's in a car. He's not connected to nature, he's in a car. It's air conditioned. He buys little tacky things to have fragrances in the car, because he doesn't want to smell nature, he wants to smell what he likes, what his ego prefers. And so what man does now with his aesthetics is he glorifies the destruction of nature, because he believes, and his religion teaches, that things are only of value when man lays his hand and works upon it. Go back to John Locke. He says that man looks upon raw nature and he works it by his labor, therefore he owns it. So man has no value of nature anymore. The value is only in what nature can earn him or how it can entertain him. And you have to look at the hunting and fishing of the modern asleep man. Is that real hunting? The hunting the way the Native American Indians hunted? No, now it's with a high-powered, high-velocity rifle, telescopic sight, laser sight, to go slaughter sadistically animals and take pleasure. To fish in great fiberglass boats, in convenience and luxury, and just destroy and eat everything. Industrialization of aesthetics. So we have to look on man now as a disease, for man is the problem, and his aesthetics show this. Consider the Christian idea of the body, and you can see that what is the belief? The belief is that the soul has come from somewhere else, heaven, into a body at conception, and then is carried around by the body, the decaying body, which must be constantly fixed and repaired by the modern medical industry unto death, at which point the body is embalmed so that they can await a resurrection of the body into a body which evidently is not to decay anymore, some sort of fantasy body, and be transported not again to this earth but to heaven. For essentially the Christian ethos is anti-nature. For why do you need to respect or love nature when you're just going to leave? Your soul didn't come from here, and you are your soul, and your soul will not stay here. The ethos of Christianity in America and its aesthetic, which is false plastic flowers, looks like the cheap cemeteries you see all over, manicured lawns, controlling nature, don't want to see any growth, because life itself is antithetical to the idea of the Christian progression toward perfection. And what would be perfection mean? No change. To lock in the perfected body of heaven, stasis, no change, timeless, an eternal heaven of static, stasis. So that aesthetic, to make land into one theme park with carefully delineated, edged grass, pesticides so that no insects will be there. For again, nature must be conquered. The city of man now is an aesthetic of attempting to eliminate nature, eliminate insects, pin animals. The modern man does not want to see an animal except to have as a pet. Ultimately, it is, as I said, an attempt to control death. That is the aesthetic of the modern American, the modern Christian. For he fears death, and he is afraid of life. And so he will, by his engineering, his brutal engineering, his chemistry, his spreading out upon the land through interstates, remaking nature into a banal sameness of luxury and McMansions and conformity. He will transform nature so that his religion will assure himself that he will die and go to heaven. It's truly, truly the fruition of the dream of the 50s into some dystopia, and we are in it. So that is man and man's aesthetic now. A nation of lawnmowers, that's all you see. McMansions and the working man mowing the grass. That is America now, and spraying pesticides everywhere. So truly man is the problem, and the aesthetic of man can be seen in his manicured cemeteries and his car and the interstate, and the belief that that should be spread upon the globe until everything looks like a theme park. Well, that's enough for now.